Welcome to episode 11 of the Unperfect Podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Sneed, and I'm here to help you see glimpses of God's glory in the now and the not yet of your imperfect life as we balance the tension between living in a broken world but having direct access to its beautiful Creator as He lives and moves in us. So if you've ever struggled with this or sometimes just wonder, what is God up to in the midst of all this imperfection? Hope and probably a little bit of humor are on the horizon. Hello, everyone. Today you are in for a very special treat because one of my favorite podcasters is joining us from Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm imagining it's a little warmer than it is here today. Today, it definitely felt like fall when I opened the door for the first time. But we have Sandy Cooper from the Balanced Momcast here with us. Welcome, Sandy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Shelley. It's my pleasure to be here.
Sandy is an author. She's written 3 books: Finding Your Balance, Is the Voice in My Head God or Just Me, and Mom, You're Amazing. And she's the host of not one, but 2 podcasts, which just the thought of managing that triggers my anxiety because I was up till like 11 p.m. last night editing an episode. So I'm not sure how you do that. But Sandy and I actually met this past summer when I took an online course with her and the fabulous Mary Kay Tiller. And we'll mention that at the end of this episode. But Sandy doesn't know this, but we were actually BFFs for about a year before that because I discovered her. That's when I discovered your podcast. And I discovered it like 100 episodes into it. You were already that far into it. So I got to binge it. So literally, you were the voice in my head, like 4 days a week.
Oh my gosh. That's a little overwhelming.
No pressure. I would put my earbuds in, take the dog on a walk, and you would teach me, encourage me, challenge me, make me laugh, whatever. So I really did. By the time I met you, I was like, don't you know me? Because I really know you. So
that's right. And the fact that you still want to talk to me is pretty incredible, actually. So yeah, I'm like, haven't you heard enough?
No, definitely not heard enough.
Okay.
Today we're going to be talking about busyness, something I'm sure every female on the planet can relate to, or at least in our Western culture. Maybe they have it better. They've got it down in some other cultures better than we do.
Yes.
But to help us get there, Sandy, in your first book, Finding Your Balance, you identify 4 barriers to balance. Can you tell us what those are?
Yes. So the 4 barriers to balance that I identify are perfectionism, comparison, people pleasing, and busyness. So I'm not going to unpack all of those right here because I take the whole book to do that. But yes, that's what they are. And I just want to say I'm a recovering all of those. Okay. So that's not me judging. That's me confessing. So yeah.
Yes, I love it. And I am most of those. No one's ever called me a perfectionist, my husband in particular. But tell us then, how does busyness differ from those other 3 barriers?
Sure. So the difference between busyness and perfectionism, comparison, and people pleasing is that busyness is usually a byproduct of one or more of those other 3 barriers. So it's really not until someone examines the root of their busyness that they can really uncover like what's really going on here. But and I'm sure as we progress in the conversation, I can offer some examples. But it's usually when someone really digs deep and says, "Oh my goodness, why is my calendar out of control? Why have I eaten up all my margin? Why am I always running around like crazy busy?" As they like to say. It's usually one of those other things are the culprit, or at least one of those other things, and then it's feeding into what is becoming an overly busy lifestyle. So that one is usually, it's why I offer it last in the book, because we've already talked at that point in the book about all the other 3. So usually by the time we get to the point of studying busyness, we've already uncovered whether or not we are perfectionists or we're trapped by comparison, or we're overcome with people pleasing. And by that point, then we can start to unravel the busyness thing that has happened because of those other things.
That makes perfect sense to me. And I shared this in an episode a few weeks ago because I remember having a day where I had over volunteered, over committed. Everyone, it was to everyone in my family's detriment. By the end of the day, it was terrible. But it went. I could trace it back to comparison, like, well, everyone else is volunteering here and there, or to the people pleasing. So that makes perfect sense that it has a deeper
Right.
root. So, what is the big deal about busyness? Why is it a problem?
Okay, so just having a full life is not a problem. Okay, so for all those people out there who want to have a full life, don't want to live slowly, don't want to, you know, go into like that. Some of us just like to move at a faster clip, is what I'm
Right.
saying. There's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with that. Okay. So I do want to qualify everything that I'm about to say is I'm not just talking about living a full life, doing a lot of things and getting it all done. There's nothing wrong with that kind of
Sure.
busyness. But there is a level of busyness that takes you into a danger zone, and that's kind of what we're addressing today. So there are several problems with that kind of busyness, and the first one is that when busyness becomes hurry, it affects our heart. And so one of the things I love the whole I don't know if you've ever read the John Ortberg or anything that he talks about when Dallas Willard was his mentor. And
Yes.
Dallas Willard was the one who famously said, ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And it just changed John Ortberg's whole approach to everything. And John Ortberg says that hurry is not just a disordered schedule, that hurry is a disordered heart. And
Mm.
we learn about that in Luke 10 when we see the Mary Martha story. It's like the story we all love to hate as women. We're
Right.
like, oh, them again. It's in every women's Bible study. And so I had to
Right.
put it in mine because it has to show up in every women's Bible study. But in that story, Martha is the busy one, I say in quotation marks, and Mary is the one who's chosen better because she's sitting at the feet. And all of us who have to run a household are all sitting there scratching our heads going, what is Martha doing wrong? Like, I don't get it. I
Right.
don't understand why she's the one who's getting called out here, because we all want to be able to sit at the feet of Jesus all day, but someone's got to cook dinner. Someone's got to clean the
Right.
house. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
so that I just want to go up to Martha and go, I get you. I understand. But I also want to go to Mary and say, I get you too. So I get it. But what we notice there is that Jesus is not addressing Martha's activities. Okay. He's not going down and saying, you know what? This is not like this cleaning thing you're doing and the preparation thing you're doing. Like all of that is a problem. You should instead be doing these activities. What he addresses is her attitude. And he says that the things that she is doing, her attitude about it has made her distracted, worried, and upset. Okay, so
Wow.
that's when busyness crosses over the line from I'm just doing good things and a lot of good things to I am now distracted, I am now worried, and I am now upset. And that's when it affects our heart. So that's just one of the problems with being overly busy. I can move on to the next one. Do you want to
Yeah,
respond to that, or do you
no,
want me
I
to just keep
love
going?
that. And I'll let you move on to the next one, but I have to say this here. I had to laugh in your book when you say, you talk about Martha in your book and you're like, could you just give her a break? And what you were just saying, like, I get you, Martha. And I always laugh because I never saw myself as Martha in that story because I don't
Mm-hmm.
clean. Like, I'm a terrible housekeeper. So I quoted my favorite comedian last week on the podcast, who says, I'm fun. Fun people don't clean. But
That's right.
but the truth is, I don't really relate to Mary because I feel it with other things. I may not be housekeeping, but like
Yeah,
you said, like the heart, like I'm not sitting at the feet of Jesus, or I'm not making room for that in my heart. I am filling
right,
it with all these other things. So yeah, totally get that.
right.
All right, give
Yes.
us another one.
Yeah. So, yes, another problem with busyness is that loving people is really difficult when we're hurried and rushed. Like, I don't know about you, Shelly, but I am never my best self when I am in a hurry. Like,
No.
and when I am
Yep.
just my schedule's packed, I I just kind of stink as a human. I'm not nice. I I snap at my kids, I snap at my husband, I'm angry in traffic. Like, just name the scenario
Absolutely.
that puts yeah. So and that is true across the board. So just loving people showing up and loving people is difficult when we're always busy. The third one is that busyness actually makes us less productive and less creative. And there's all
Mm,
kinds of research that's been done on multitasking. And as much as women like to say, oh, I'm such a good multitasker, no, you're not. No, you're not.
right.
Like, the truth is you can't, and your brain doesn't work that way, and you may be able to do some things while also doing some other things, but if you really are trying to you make the best use of your time, busyness is not the way to get it. If you have creative work to do like we do with podcasting, it's impossible when you're in a rush. Like, creative work does not thrive in hurry
Right.
and rushing and crammed, zero margin. That's not where creativity thrives. So that is another big problem. It also leads to sickness. So, that feels like a big leap to be like, really? But the busy, at least how busyness affects most of the people I know, including myself, is that busyness makes me feel stressed. Stress, we know, is, I mean, the
Absolutely.
more research we know, it's like such a big um, contributor to weight gain and heart disease and high blood pressure and sleep problems. And then we start getting into sleep problems. There's a whole slew of things that happen to our body when we don't get proper sleep. And so it's this domino effect that starts with busyness and then leads to all the other things. It also makes us unavailable to people. So,
Right.
you know, you schedule yourself, and then you get the person who isn't the planner person who wants to spend some time with you, whether that be your child
Right.
or your best friend or whatever, and if you have packed your schedule to the brim and you have no margin, you don't have time to stop and play trains with your little boy or meet your best friend for coffee on the way to carpool or whatever, whatever it is, you're just unavailable. And finally, and you kind of alluded to this at the beginning, and if you want to go back and talk about any of these, we certainly can. But busyness makes us unavailable to God. And spending time with God takes time. Like, it
Right.
it literally takes time. So if you are praying, or you're needing to get into God's word, or study God's word, or worship, or sit in solitude and silence, like, all of those things literally require chronos time, okay? Like, physical minutes on a clock that requires it. And if you are always packing your schedule to the brim, um, usually that's one of the first things to go, unless you've made a covenant relationship with that time. And that is the first thing you do every day, and you just will never not do it forever and ever. Amen. So busyness makes us unavailable to God in the sense of spending time with Him, but it also makes us unavailable to God if He has a last minute assignment for us. If we're going about our day, and I can't tell you how many times where I have been rushed and I am out and about interacting with humans, and I feel the Lord just tell me to slow down a little bit and talk to this person and just wait and have a conversation. And if I am not, if I don't have the margin to do that, then the answer is no. And I don't want to be that kind of woman of God. Like, I want to
Right.
be the one that when God wants something done, He thinks of me. He's like, oh, Sandy will do it. Sandy's
That's
available.
awesome. Yeah,
So,
and I love how
yeah.
you said that too, because when you first said it makes us unavailable to people, I was thinking, yeah, my kids, my husband, like
Hmm.
they get the leftovers. We've all felt that way before. But what you're
Hmm.
saying is so true too, because there have been times where I'm like, I'm just not around many unbelievers. The truth is, I'm around them all the time, but I'm in a hurry as I'm running by them or rushing through the line or whatever else like you're
Yes.
talking about, because I'm so distracted. And the other thing I thought of as you were talking is you were talking about how when we're so busy and hurried that our time with God gets left off, which that is obviously often true of me. But I've also
Sure.
noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but when I'm living such a back to back busy lifestyle, even if I have an hour and a half to spend with God, I don't know how to sit still. Like, I
Right.
I literally, like, I don't even, I want to rush to do the things. And that could
Right.
be part of my personality, is just I'm a doer. Like, I like to be doing stuff. But I
Sure.
also think there's that part, even in our culture and with, social
Mhm.
media and everything else. Like, my mind has kind of forgotten how to just slow down recently. Well, not recently, probably within the last year. My husband and I had a conversation. I think I've even said this on the podcast before, but where
Mhm.
I was trying to pencil something in, and I said, look, I can do this every day in my week. There's something every day except that day. So I can pencil it in there.
Mhm.
And he said, but this is how I look at my calendar. I look at that one day and it's not, there's nothing on it, and I'm going to protect it. And that's
Mm.
like a whole nother way of looking at
Yes.
my calendar.
Yes.
Like, I just, I think fill it, and he thinks protect it. And
Yes. That is such a great distinction. Fill it versus protect it. Yes.
yeah,
And so yes, as we are approaching busyness, one of the things about being proactive, which we'll get to, I'm sure, as we continue to unpack the topic, but being proactive about protecting your margin is a really powerful strategy to not keep falling into busyness, because busyness is hard. Like, undoing busyness is really hard, because if it was
yes,
just as simple as just taking a few things off of our plate, like, we would have already done that.
right,
We know how to do that. We know how to cancel things. That's not the problem. The problem is usually a lot deeper. And it's going to, because we are all alive and we are all
right,
interacting with other humans who are also alive. Um, it's like a garden, and you have to maintain the weeds. Like, you can't just weed
right,
your garden one time and be like, see, I did it. Your life is never going to it's never going to be a self-sustaining, uh, unbusy place. It's just
right.
because it's things are just always changing. And if you're a mom and you are a wife and you work and whatever other people are in your life, like, all their stuff is constantly popping up too. And so, yes, I love that your husband looks at the calendar that way, because it's a powerful strategy. I love it.
Yes, it is. And I love how you use the garden analogy, because that just further proves why I don't garden. It's a lot of work. Um,
It
I'm
is
too
so
busy
much
to
work.
garden.
That's right.
um,
Yeah, I am the one and done kind of gardener too. I'm like, "What? I planted them. What?"
Listen,
Yeah,
I am
and
so bad. I went one summer, I bought a tomato plant in a pot because I really wanted to
yeah,
have a garden. And I was like, you know what? This
sure.
summer, let's just see if we can do tomatoes in a pot, right? Like, who
Yeah,
could not do that?
yeah,
I
who would not?
remembered that I had that tomato pot plant on my back porch at the end of the summer. Like, I never even looked at it again. And there was one little shriveled up tiny tomato. So, yes,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
not cut out for gardening. But
Okay, good to know.
yes, okay. So I do want to talk about the types of busy people, because I
Yeah,
read this section in your book and I immediately know who I am. Um,
nice.
it was your reference to if you give a pig a pancake, because that's me. So tell us about the two types of busy people.
Okay, so there are 2 main types, and then there are subtypes, depending um, on the reasoning behind each of these. So the first one is the poor time manager. So
Yes, that's me.
her problem is, okay, very good. Thank you for confessing. It's not that she doesn't have too much to do. It's that she just doesn't know how to manage her time well. And there may be a number of reasons why. For example, she might not know her priorities. Like, she truly just is always tending to the urgent thing. And that's when I gave the if you give a pig a pancake analogy,
Yes.
because she's the person who gets up, and she's just tending to the next thing that is dinging, the next the laundry's done, and then she goes to, walking through the kitchen and realizes, "Oh my gosh, I never put away dishes from last night." So she starts doing that, and then the phone rings, and then she answers that text, and then her kid calls for her, and she stops texting and runs over to tend to the kid. And at the end of the day, she has been running literally all day. But she looks back behind her, and has no idea what she got done. She feels like she hasn't accomplished anything, and her house is still a wreck, even though she's been working
Yes.
all day. Okay. Okay. So that's her. Um,
Yes.
There's another
And
kind
I'll
of
tell you something else about her you may not know. At the end of the day, she writes down all the things she did on a list and scratches through
yeah.
them so she will feel like she got something done, since she got nothing
Yes,
done
she
on her
does.
actual list.
Yes, I have also done that. That is something that many, many of us confess to on in our private time. We're like, I am going to write every single thing down that I did and then cross it off. Yes, it's so
Exactly.
satisfying. So
It
I
is.
want to high five you for that one. Okay, there's another kind of poor time manager, and she knows her priorities, but she doesn't know how to live them out. And that is usually because she lacks the self-discipline to just spend her time well. And this is where I will insert the whole rant on social media. So this is where most women who are currently in this category are getting sucked into the vortex. They're losing an average of 2 hours a day, um, just because they open up their phones and start scrolling.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we can go on that's my thing. I can go on a whole thing about
Yeah,
that. But
and
we'll
that was me. Yeah, and we'll do a
yeah,
whole nother podcast on that, because I haven't
yeah.
even mentioned on here, but I'll do it now since I'm confessing all my other stuff. That I have
All
now
her
been off of
sins.
social media for a month and a half, and I don't
Good
miss
for
it. But
you.
I love this, and it was for that reason. It wasn't because bad things were happening on social media.
Right.
It was
Sure.
the time wasting. I love the quote you have from John Piper in their book.
Yeah.
One of the great uses of Twitter and Facebook will be to prove at the last day that prayerlessness was not from lack of time. And that
Yep.
is a big ouch. That's a big
It is.
convicting
And I
statement.
just want to say the irony of that is he posted it on Twitter, which I just think is amazing. It just makes me laugh.
That is
And
pretty
B,
funny.
yes, and B, that was from 2009.
Wow.
That was before social media was even like anywhere close to what it is right now. Can you imagine? Like, I would love to hear his updated quote on that. Not
Exactly.
that it
Like
even needs to be
that was
updated,
very
but
prophetic for him to have
it
said
was
that
very
then.
prophetic.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Sandy unpacked so much good stuff for us as we consider the potential root of our busyness and the problems it can cause. Now, make sure you take a listen to next week's episode, where we continue our conversation and dive deeper into not only the other types of busy people, but also some strategies we can use to slow down and make room for what matters most. While you wait for part 2 to come out next week, head over to Sandy's website and take a free busyness quiz to see just what kind of busy person you are. And while you're there, check out her amazing podcast, The Balanced Momcast, where she helps frazzled moms find peace. Yes, please. I'll take an extra serving of that one anytime. There's more in the show notes if you want to dive deeper, so make sure you check it out. And as always, I'm praying you have a blessed week and see glimpses of God's goodness in the midst of the now and the not yet of your unperfect life. See you next time.